Well, hello and welcome to Association Transformation, our not so new international conversation advancing the impact and evolution of nonprofit organizations. I'm so excited that my co-host is back with me today, and we are brought to you by the Institute of Association Leadership. So Andrew, welcome back. It's nice to have you.
Hi, Lise. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing great. We're continuing to seek diversity of thought and examples of innovation and action in the association space. It's been quiet without you. It's been optimistic and positive without you.
Enough. I've not been well, and you're just taking advantage of it. Oh my goodness me. Enough.
Welcome back. I didn't want you to get soft. I got to keep you in game shape. Beat you up a little bit all the time,
Indeed. Well, I'm super excited this week because, as I am every week, I hasten to add, but I am this week because we're joined by Mervyn Pilley, who is the Executive Director of the Energy Services and Technology Association.
He's going to be on the masterclass, right? He's on the...
I love what you did there. Good. I love how you...
I am a professional, Andrew. You didn't have to point it out. I do know what I'm doing. Thank you. Does Mervyn.
He is going to be on this Wednesday. As we're listening to this on Monday, he's going to be on this Wednesday's masterclass.
Well, what a coincidence! April 28th, the IAL masterclass with
Register
Mervyn Pilley.
now at theial.org. It's amazing. We're like a well-oiled machine. Hello,
I
Mervyn.
know.
How
back
are you,
at
sir?
it.
I'm well, Andrew. Thank you, and looking forward to the masterclass.
Good.
I'm going to add to this. I'm going to try and get as many people registered for that masterclass as possible.
Do you mean the one that's happening this Wednesday?
I do, yes. And fun enough, I'm involved with it. I'm right front and centre on it.
Right. I don't think, in fairness to us now, I don't think our producer Izzy can ask for anything more other than we're going to interrupt everything we say every few minutes with reference to this masterclass. I am so excited. Thank you for joining us. A true heavyweight of I was going to say the UK, but actually I think the global association sector. Mervyn is joining us this week to talk about something that I know that he and I both, and I know you do as well, Elisa, but Mervyn and I in particular spent a lot of time talking about, the role that membership associations, trade associations, learning societies, the membership world can have on addressing some of the global challenges that we face on unprecedented scales in 2021. The Monday before the workshop on the Wednesday, and I know Mervyn, obviously you're here in your capacity as the exec director of the Energy Services and Technology Association, but I know that you share my ambitions for what the global association sector can do in delivering against the challenges we face in terms of climate change. But also the various social injustices and challenges that we face as well. So thank you so much for joining us on this week's pod. Tell us a wee bit, if you would, about, just start us off on what the Energy Services and Technology Association actually does.
Well, we're a traditional trade association in many ways, Andrew. So we're about 30 odd years old. Interesting enough, by the way, you mentioned to me as a heavyweight. I would let you know I've actually lost a stone in the last in the lockdown. I'm one of these rare people who in the lockdown seems to have lost weight as opposed to everyone else.
I was going to say I'll take your stone and I'll raise it by another, I think.
Oh dear. No, back to ESTA. So yes, ESTA, which acronym is a lot easier. It's like a lot of organisations where the name, every time you try and say the name, especially if you're answering a phone or quickly, it's very much easier just to say ESTA. In a way, it sort of does what it says on the tin. Say it's about 35 years old, but we're a traditional trade association, and in reality, it's always been about energy efficiency. And in fact, it's first of all, using energy less or using less energy, even get that the right way around. And the energy you do use, using it more efficiently and effectively. So as I said, we're a UK trade association with some interesting members, some very large companies in the worldwide companies, some very small UK-based companies. Actually, interestingly enough, as part of what's going on, because clearly everything that we're doing on the SDGs, the Sustainability Development Goals, and indeed net zero is global. It's no good just trying to do it in any one country. It's truly global. So actually, ESTA's focus has also shifted. And we've been having some really interesting discussions with some quite exotic parts of the world. Unfortunately, I don't have a travel budget to get there. I'd love to. Some very nice holiday destinations, which hopefully one day I'll be able to get out and meet people face to face. Passionately committed. And then, interesting enough, something else I believe passionately in is that membership can solve a lot of the world's problems. The concept of membership, as opposed to the humble things of any one trade association, because I have to keep reminding myself that ESTA, for all the work our members do, which is a range of services and products and behaviour change, which obviously we'll talk about, that wonderful masterclass that's happening Wednesday.
Right on schedule.
Yeah, right on schedule. Yeah, Izzy's going to get fed up with us keep plugging this masterclass. No, it's a really mixed bag, but we do passionately believe in that the various solutions our members provide, which range across from metering, technical solutions, auditing, standards work, ISO work, etc. The behaviour change element is an important part of that. We think 50% behaviour change, 50% technology.
So, Mervyn, I'll ask the layman's question. I'll do so for the good of the audience. What exactly do we mean by net zero? And is this something that associations should be pushing just to their members, or do they have to live it too in order to advance?
Yes, and I think, to my view, is that Elisa, is that any size of business or organisation can do something. Interestingly enough, of course, a lot of trade associations, a lot of membership bodies have got a lot more staff working from home. Some are giving up premises, some are giving up some of the trappings, shall we say, of organisation that make it perhaps a little harder to see where you might affect using less energy or using energy use efficiently. Some people would argue, well, if I'm at home and I'm working from home, my staff are all working from home, does that not mean as an organisation I'm actually using less energy anyway? It does and it doesn't, because of course the organisation might be using less, but of course it's the people at home are all using their own energy at home, which of course doesn't really make much difference. In terms of, yes, I mean, I think it's an organisational thing. I would encourage all membership bodies to actually take an active role in their own organisation, and a lot are, and to be fair, not just organisations who are within the sort of specific area. I mean, obviously some organizations are very much energy focused or sustainability focused, but actually any trade association, and I've been having some dialogue with a whole range of trade associations over the last year or more, in all sorts of energy using sectors. It's just really a marketing thing. It's getting that conduit, using those conduits that most membership bodies have, and just getting that message out. Associations, as we know, can target members. They know which members are energy using, or use more energy than others, which ones actually own bills, which is important. If you're paying for the energy, you've got far more stake in doing something about it, rather than if you just rent a building where the landlord may not have the same thoughts and objectives as you do.
But, I think about this. So we just recently chatted with some new executives, and I think about it as association professionals are trying to survive the pandemic. They're trying to shift their events. They're trying to manage remote staffs. There's so much swirling around them. And I know this isn't a new thing. I mean, you mentioned that ESTA has been around for 30 years. But how do you take those first steps? How do you make now the right time to start this conversation or to advance this discussion? Why now? How now?
It's actually partly, incredibly, an awful lot of focus has come about literally because of one big event, which is COP26, and that's really something that's driving a lot of people's focus on these things. Indeed, it's actually driving the UK government's focus on these things, because all of a sudden everyone's woken up to the fact that this very global change, effectively what should be a very vitally important event, is sort of pushing everyone's agenda. So I think it's interesting, last year, or actually seems like more than last year now, about late 2019, I'm very aware that we had a climate change committee report which reported to the UK government on all sorts of activities relating to net zero and achieving by 2050. And actually, what was driving it, Eliza, was the members were pushing upwards. So I spoke to quite a few trade associations, and they said, Mervyn, our members are actually saying to us, what are you doing about this emergency? What is happening? How can we help? Now, to be fair, of course, you've got the 80-20 rule that you have with any membership structure, where you could argue that 80% of the members probably wouldn't have. They've got far more other things to think about. And you're right. How has the pandemic affected this? How has it? And clearly, it has affected it. I mean, obviously, COP was postponed because it should have been November last year. It's now November this year. We've had a change of government in the US, which has obviously impacted substantially. We've had a government in the UK which is quite slow to sort of pick up policy and move things forward. And I say just this one focused event, which is a nightmare when you think about it. The whole, almost the planet, saving the planet, is all being driven around one event in Glasgow, where there's going to be some very expensive hotel space, we understand, albeit there's a discussion it's going to be virtual, whether it's going to be physical. Yeah, I saw something which said a Glasgow hotel was looking to charge £14,000 for a week.
Oh, right.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah, and that's the point when I looked at my budget and I thought I'm going to have to sleep on someone's couch.
yeah, I need to look up friends in Glasgow. Yeah, my God, yeah, absolutely.
I know some very good funeral directors in Glasgow, Andrew, from a previous life.
Well, there's a morbid thought.
They've got some beds. They've got some beds for you.
Well, that was my first foray into trade association. They've got some very good couches and some coffins if I need them. Sorry, I just changed the subject.
And I think it is interesting. I think it is. One of the challenges I've always had when working in the association sector is trying to convey the relevance of the issues around climate change when you're perhaps working with a really heavily focused, professionally focused association. So how do you make climate change relevant, for example, to the Institute of Actuaries or the dietetics or the nutritionists, or it's those may be bad examples actually, because I know they're doing quite good work, but it's always the trying to relate my membership of a professional association that relates to what I do in my day job, which could be absolutely ostensibly nothing to do with energy, climate change. How do I make it so that it is pertinent to my membership? But actually, I would echo what you say. There is I've seen a big. I think the COVID, the pandemic, I actually think is really fueling a significant drive for a green recovery, for want of a better phrase. I think, and it's become a lot easier now to speak to associations, speak to association execs, speak to association boards and their memberships, and it suddenly becomes it suddenly feels a lot more relevant to people. I mean, I appreciate what you're saying about COP26, absolutely. And for the listeners who don't know what COP stands for, it's the UN Climate Change Conference of the Parties, which is what COP actually is the acronym for. But I'm getting a sense that it's much easier to sort of penetrate membership's understanding of what we're talking about and the relevance to them. I don't know if Mervyn, if you're seeing that as well, but for example, I'm doing a lot of work around colleagues in waste management and resource management. Obviously, it's a much more obvious link for them to talk about energy from waste than it is perhaps with other professions. But certainly, I'm getting a sense that everyone is much more receptive to the dialogue.
I think it's just human. It's human nature, Andrew. To be honest with you, I mean, David Attenborough is obviously a massive profile. Greta Thunberg all over the BBC again. Big documentary on it this week. I think you couldn't be human and not be aware of what's going on around you. So it's good in a way that whether it's interesting from the professional body view, where you've got individual as opposed to corporate, obviously trade association, adds that extra layer of contact in that you've got to try. If you're getting through to the human nature, it's sometimes easier just to talk to the human being and say, look, you need to save the planet. This is the planet we're on. There is only one planet, although obviously people are trying to get to Mars and whatever, going back to the moon again. But there is only one planet, and I think actually, in a funny sort of way, people like David Attenborough really helped us because it's the bottom-up approach. So you're right, individuals are more engaged. And it was really revealing that, say, two of the trade bodies I spoke to had said to me, Mervyn, this is really good timing. This, I say, it's a long time ago, or seems a long time ago, really good timing for your approach, because we're finding members are starting to ask us, well, what are you doing? What are we doing as an organisation? Now, that's not going to be the common with all bodies, and you're right, some bodies are going to be a bit more detached. I think the other thing which is relevant certainly on the whole issue about sustainability and COP is, as Mark Carney said, businesses that don't engage in this process and don't try and take part in it are not going to remain competitive. They're going to, the old issue back of greenwash, and there's a lot of discussion and obviously debate going on about that at the moment. But it's pressures coming, I think, from all sides, is what I'm saying. It's coming from the member, as in individual, and from business from the top. And what the associations can do, which is what we do so well, is to bring all that together, provide that conduit for the member so the member understands, gets the information they need. We were trying to put speakers out at quite a lot of association events before the pandemic, but unfortunately, that didn't quite happen.
I think there's, speaking on behalf of the organizations who may be interested in beginning this journey, but they don't know where to begin. I think everyone wants to save the planet. Everyone wants to protect the planet, but there's a big gap between wanting to and knowing how to start in a way that's realistic and actionable for your organization, whether it be internally in your own management structure or for and on behalf of your members. When an organization comes to you, Mervyn, and says, I think we're ready, or my board has mentioned this, it's part of our new strategic plan, whatever it may be, how do they start the journey? What's the first step in this, I don't know, safe and something that they can start off with some early victories?
The first step is, without a doubt, is finding out where you are at the moment. Elisa, where are we on the journey? Where that's the first sort of base, what I call the baseline. And then from there, you can plot how you're going to take those first steps. Actually, interesting enough, the behaviour change program that we're obviously going to be talking a little bit, the ENCO program, it is very much focused on that element where champions from within, so staff members for a company or team members can actually play a part. There are expensive solutions, certainly in terms of my product, in my field, energy efficiency. There are some expensive capital cost solutions in terms of technology, equipment that you can buy and measure and all sorts of things. But at the end of the day, actually, some of those steps are very basic. Just understanding how equipment works and how best to use existing equipment. And it's something back to the same thing as, switching off the light, shutting the window down, turning your computers off at night. So many people leave things on overnight where they don't need to. That's the really low level for us. Obviously, for the bigger picture, the net zero picture, that then starts feeding into the vehicles you're using, the transport you're driving. And to be honest with you, the plane journeys as an association, there's been a very interesting debate last week about using the train to Edinburgh or flying to Edinburgh. The airline sector wants everyone to fly to Edinburgh, actually, because, hang on, is a train journey a lot less carbon than a plane? But yeah, so in terms of that journey, benchmark, first step is to do an audit, and it doesn't have to be done by a professional. You can do it internally. There are multiple platforms out there now where you can get quite a lot of accessible information about how you measure where you are now, what you're doing now, and how that works against a net zero target, and then you can plot. You'd be amazed. It's been very positive how many solutions are now in the marketplace. Very, very low cost, very easy to use. Platforms have been developed to help organizations of all sizes on that journey. But it's just understanding, as I say, where you are, and then you can start that plot where you go from there.
Right. But as you mentioned, a budget comes along with this. As you become more sophisticated in your adoption of net zero strategies, you will need to ask some budgetary questions as well.
Yes, and payback is important. Again, some equipment you could spend easily, invest in equipment, and then it takes quite a while to pay back. And I know that the other aspect of businesses, of course, is as the price of energy has been going up. So it's frustrating because a lot of businesses have put measures in, but the finance director continually is signing checks for bigger and bigger amounts of money for the energy because the costs have been going up. So psychologically, it's not easy, and I don't think anyone pretends it is easy. But unfortunately, we come back to the same discussion about those all sorts of aspects of how important it is that we, quite literally save the planet. But yeah, I'm a passionate believer. I think most of our members are, and a lot of other people are, that it doesn't matter how big a business you are, how small a business, how small a trade association or membership body you are, or how big you are. Everybody's got to play a part in that process. It's the information and the understanding of how you can do it, and associations are a really good conduit for that sort of information.
Well, and that net zero journey starts with the decision. Just starts with the choice, and you have to start before you can get anywhere.
Yeah, it's benchmarking, knowing where you are on that journey, and then moving forward. But although that sounds easy to say and daunting to do, I genuinely believe there are enough very, very self-help platforms out there now that have been developed for that very purpose, to help the smallest organization actually measure what they're doing now, what their output is in terms of emissions, and how they can start tackling that. There are some relatively easy fixes, some potentially controversial ones like planting trees, offsetting. Some of these terms are becoming more commonly known. Offsetting is quite controversial. The view that as an organization you could plant trees to offset your emissions. But my view and a few other people's views, actually, it's better to do something than do nothing. So I don't necessarily share the view of some that you have to do it all as an organization. You can't do some of the shortcuts to doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's a key sort of message from from the IAL's IGNITE program, is that it's not about doing everything. You can't do everything yourself. What you can do is you do something, and you tackle the area that you're good at, or you tackle the area that you specialize in, or you tackle the area that you can tackle. And yeah, I think the economic arguments are strong, and it does. But the whole cultural piece, therefore, is needed to say, yeah, okay, the economic arguments are strong. It's going to cost this. This may be capital outlay, but there may be also cash savings. And yes, payback may be over 5, 10, 15, maybe 20 years, maybe 25 years. But you're right. The cultural piece then is around, well, what's the altruistic need to embed or to create, to use, an energy conscious organization? Why do we have to do that? And certainly I'm excited about, the ENCO tool. For listeners, if you check out energyconsciousorganisation.org.uk. Was enco.org.uk was that already taken, was it?
And energy consult, it's in full, but thanks for the plug, Andrew. It's very much appreciated. energyconsciousorganisation.org.uk. Yeah, it's early days for that program, and we've been working hard at it. And for an organisation like us, we don't have a vast resource. We're not one of the world's biggest trade associations, so we've almost had to sort of do it on a DIY methodology. I think we're quite proud of it. It's intended for organisations and businesses of all size, and a lot of it, as I said, is relatively low cost and quick payback in terms of, again, measured against other activities like buying electric vehicles or, getting renewable energy. And again, lots of discussion out there at the moment about how do you buy genuinely renewable energy. There's lots of blending of suppliers out there, and some of them are saying, well, we offer you, but those all cost. The actual equipment, yes, is capex, is expensive. The other factor, of course, because we're looking globally, and certainly in some parts of the world, obviously it was very interesting to listen to a webinar the other day where someone said, well, of course, in Africa, they don't have equipment. They're still cooking on wood. They're still very basic. For them, net zero means something completely different. The energy efficiency means something completely different. So it's measuring and balancing up what is for us a very developed economy, what's important for our members in that sort of economy, measured against you remember I said COP was going to be, could be virtual and not physical, but there's been an argument about, are we disadvantaging all of those countries who can't readily get, if they don't come to COP, are they going to be able to take an active part in COP? It's a very interesting debate. A lot of activity going on at this moment in the whole marketplace.
Well, certainly, I would like to. You say I'm plugging it, but one of the things that we're doing together with the IAL is we are going to be promoting and making the ENCO tool, available to members of the IAL, because I think it's important that, personally, I'm not waiting for COP. We're just getting on with it an awful, COP's exciting. We intend to be there, virtually or otherwise. But I think, we have an opportunity anyway to be, and we are, moving things forward. And so certainly from an association community perspective, we're going to be working, listeners should know that we're going to be working over the coming months with Mervyn and his team to make ENCO, part of the core toolkit for any association, and hopefully their members as well. So I think it's worth people. I'm going to say it again, energy conscious organisation.org.uk, taking a look at that, because I think it's a phenomenal tool, based around the critical behaviour change that we need, to tackle to tackle these major global, well, you can't say headaches is such an understatement, global migraines that we've got going on.
I shouldn't make it sound like
Mervyn,
COP is a completely finite thing, Andrew. COP is a start in its own way of another journey, because as government have told us, COP is about getting everybody together, agreeing, a bit like I said earlier to Eliza, about working out where we are, what we've got to do very quickly. So beyond COP, clearly, COP is focusing a lot of people's minds at the moment on a lot of things, but beyond COP, we've got to keep that action going. And that's the negative aspect of collaboration sometimes, is you can easily develop into a not quite a talking shop, but you can easily do a lot of dialogue, a lot of discussion, and at the end of the day, it's got to be about actual action. Yeah.
So as we look ahead to the masterclass, Mervyn, who's the ideal audience for Wednesday's conversation?
It would be, although I have an ambition, Liza, that any size of business, I've already alluded, any company, any organization could do this. Ideal at the moment to achieve the maximum result out of our efforts. And in fact, some of those associations I've been talking to over the last 12 months have been in the sectors where generally companies and businesses and organizations are using more energy than others. So manufacturing, property, hotels, any organization. So generally the membership sectors where those sorts of businesses are housed would be achieve the most impact the quickest. And actually the other reason is that it can work better with certain sizes of business. Obviously, it's back to the champions thing. So one of the aspects of the program is having a staff cohort that champions good behavior in terms of using less energy. So, but that said, even a micro business with less than 10 employees, if anything, it should be easier for the cohort. But then the micro businesses obviously tend not to use the quantities of energy that the impact isn't going to be as great as quickly. So ideally, I'd say the trade associations in the sector who have those members who are using a lot of energy relative to other sectors. And Andrew and I need to have a dialogue about the climate change agreement sectors where that is the sort of biggest usage of energy in the UK. But no, it's those are the sorts of ideal end users. But to be honest with you, I think any organisation in any sector can get involved in this process. It's not unique to those trade associations.
Well, such an exciting challenge that we all have an opportunity to make an impact on. And hopefully we have teed up the masterclass accordingly. Izzy, I think that's our 8th reference. I don't know if we're getting paid by the reference here, but I think we're all doing pretty great in advance of Wednesday, April 28th's masterclass with Mervyn Pilley. And Mervyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Mervyn.
You've planted a lot of seeds, no pun intended, and I think there is really an opportunity for for membership organizations to change the world, both trade
Yeah,
association
absolutely.
and membership wise. We just all have to believe it's possible, and we all have to believe that our small and incremental steps forward are part of this important journey. So thank you so much, not only for the work that you're doing, but for your time with us today. We really appreciate it. I'm guessing, given the IAL's involvement and how much work there is to be done, that this will be the first of many conversations. And again, we appreciate your leadership in the space. And Andrew, thank you again for your time this morning. We hope you'll join us again. We hope those who have listened have enjoyed the podcast and will come back once again as we continue the conversations that advance the association community. If you'd like to join us or have an idea for the podcast, you can contact us at Association Transformation or email us at hello@yourconsort.com, and we'll draw on our network of seasoned professionals and heavyweights like Mervyn to pull together conversations worth listening to. If you've enjoyed Association Transformation, you can find us wherever podcasts come from. I don't know where podcasts come from these days, but wherever podcasts are posted, and make us one of your favorites. Until next time, Andrew and I thank you for joining us, and we say stay well and put your members and your mission first.
Association Transformation is brought to you in partnership between Consort Strategy and Brewer Pratt Solutions in support of the Institute of Association Leadership.